We all know exercise is good for your body, but how do you exercise your brain? How do you exercise your mind? How do you exercise your soul? Judy Rogers, you do a lot of the exercise programs for the Encore program. Tell me a little bit about these.
Well, this is my second time participating I was a past student of Encore last year.
Okay.
And I was asked by one of the other instructors to substitute her class. And then the ladies at Encore said, hey, how would you like to teach for us?
What classes are you doing?
I am teaching a prop Pilates this session where we work on like rings and balls and bands and all kinds of things that help give you outside of the box thinking to work your core. More isolating for the inside thighs and the outside of the hips and the ball because it's a unstable prop that really makes those muscles respond.
Now, this is a very interesting area because when we're working with folks over 55 and we're doing physical things, why is it important for them to build up their core, and how does this affect their brain and their balance?
Well, you know what? This is the most dedicated group of people I have found because now they have time.
Oh, yeah.
And they find that you start to notice things where you start to depreciate. You notice those small things of not being able to open your water bottle from Heinen's. You notice like, oh my God, I tripped over the rug. You start to notice those things, the changes, and they're subtle at first until they start inhibiting you from doing things.
And diminishing the quality of life. So
correct.
Now,
correct.
When we're talking about challenging the brain and we're doing balanced things, we speak to that for a little bit. How does this affect the way your brain works?
Well, your brain sends signals to your muscles, to your body to pick up your foot. So it's high enough, like tripping over walls. A lot of times what happens is we start to misjudge our spatial awareness. And we'll simply just trip over a curb because we didn't pick up our foot high enough. So we work on exercises that not only help you march and lift your leg in different planes, but we also add weight to that with our arms, which challenges our brain to move your legs and your arms at the same time.
Would it be fair to call that asymmetrical exercising?
Well,
like you're challenging the brain in a way that it doesn't typically do. So
completely. Yes. You are definitely challenging your brain in isolated movements in the correct planes with the proper form to their fullest potential.
And a lot of older people, right, as they become aware that like things are physically diminishing little bit by little bit, all of a sudden they're like, well, I don't want to fall, so I'm going to start to shuffle my feet.
And most men do shuffle their feet because it is the first joint that they tend to lose calcium out of. Women, it's their wrists. So men, if you kind of get the older man shuffle, and that is a fall risk.
That's
when
a
you don't
recipe
pick up
for
your
falling.
feet. That is a fall risk, and tripping over rugs and even outside, curbs. It's imperative that we really pay attention to how high we pick up our feet, and our brain sends the signals to pick our feet up high enough.
High enough. And then we but also right to the point that you were making earlier, like the thigh muscles and so on and so forth, and flexibility through the joints of the leg to be able to safely stride.
Correct. And that's where the first class comes in, is because your core, it might have been, it's a prop Pilates class, but you are the machine. You're the machine. Your core is really from your sternum to your pubic bone. And your core covers your entire torso. The side, your transverse abdominis, which is the side by the rib cage, that is your balance. That's that shift. We move laterally. We pick up our left foot, then our right foot. That's how we move. So that core is the initiator for movement. Your core is the first thing that's notified to pick up that leg. In Pilates, your limbs are called your levers, but the initiation comes from your core to pick up that leg.
Well, there's all these ligaments, ropes and pulleys and stuff like that that connect to the core.
Correct.
To get reinforced in moving a limb.
That is correct. I mean, it's your pectoralis. You know, your pectoralis, your rhomboids, your lats. Your lats lift your arms. It's not, that's what picks up that arm. Your levator scapula, that's what picks up your shoulders. Those are all deep core muscles. Your legs and your arms are really your levers in a Pilates class. But when we go back to our free weight class with our balance, we have to find different ways to challenge our body, because what happens is when we stay in the same routine, things that we like to do, we plateau. We don't benefit. So we have to really create that muscle confusion. So our body's like, wait, what are you doing? And that's when it responds. Our body responds when it's like, oh my God, I have to correct myself. I can't slip. I can't fall. And the same thing happens when you lift your left arm and your right leg. It's going, whoa, wait, what are we doing? Or your left arm and your left leg. It stabilizes on the right side while you pick up the left side. It makes your mind really focus on what you are doing.
Right. And anytime you learn anything new, any piece of knowledge, any new way of moving a muscle you've never moved before.
Well, we've moved them all because we live.
Yeah.
You know,
but you're moving them in like a new way.
Well, we isolate them specifically.
There we go.
Right. And that's what we try to do in our classes is try to strengthen the points of attachment. Because where injury occurs is rarely in the meat of the muscle. It's usually at the hamstring or at the knee. It's at a joint where they attach or they insert. And that tends to be the area which tends to be injured if we fall, if we slip, if we trip, if we, God only knows what.
But all this different kind of moving is helping the brain to grow.
It's helping the brain to maintain function and movement, hopefully to grow. Hopefully, I mean...
We're always learning something new.
Yeah, hopefully it's growing. Hopefully retaining it.
Is it reorienting your brain to be able to avoid falls?
You know what I mean? Falls are just falls. Falls are just, who knows? It's just an accident. I don't think it's a conscious awareness. I think a lot of times too, the more you pay attention to what you're doing, a lot of times the more dangerous it becomes. It's like if you have an injury, all of a sudden it has a bullseye on it. Like, here, hit my knee. I just had surgery. I mean...
Is this Murphy's Law at work now?
I mean, it's just, honest to God, it's true. I mean, it really, when you have an injury and you've had it, and it really does seem like there's a bullseye on it. And it seems when you hyper-focus on something, we want to move naturally. We want to be confident in how we move. We want to pay attention to our planes. Our planes are, if we move in those planes, sagittal left and sagittal right, anterior, posterior, 90-degree planes to where we maintain a contraction and stabilize that contraction.
So we're at least reducing the probability of fall.
We are. That is always our goal.
That's awesome.
I mean, I used to work for a HealthWise Connection at the Cleveland Clinic.
Well, I notice you're using a lot of the technical body parts. It's not like you came to this last week with some little online certification or something. No. You got some bona fides. You want to talk about that just a little bit?
Done this a long time. Well, when I worked at the Cleveland Clinic, we would always, they would send us things that I taught yoga. And what I did was I taught people who had an injury and they no longer could do their therapy, but they still wanted to improve their condition. So they would come to the yoga class.
Okay.
And they would hopefully continue, to improve with whatever they had repaired or fixed. And it's very interesting that it's very interesting, and they would send out statistics that 57% of all falls result in death the first year. And
the older you get, the more likely that is.
And I lost both of my parents from falls, both my parents from broken hips. My mom broke her hip in 3 places. She died. She fell in April. She passed in September. My dad broke his hip, Veterans Day, and he died 5 days later. My grandmother broke her hip. She remained in Holly Hill for 4 years. So, and I always
You're
debated
kind of on a mission.
that. Right, I'm on a mission to keep people from falling. But I also, too, thought, that can't be true. Well, you know what? Never say things like that. Because, and I've gone to certain things where they're, what are you predetermined?
Right.
What is going to be your predetermined demise? I mean, mine is going to be a broken hip or a heart condition. So I'm going to do everything I can do for cardiovascular health and balance and coordination and trying to move safely.
My grandmother used to say to me, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Right. And if we know about what to do, God, we can be proactive. The problem is not knowing. And, through Tri-C, through Encore, I want everyone to know.
Do you find a lot of people are a little hesitant to come in because they think they're going to be in the advanced class or something like that?
Oh, very much so. And
How do you overcome that? What do you do to help somebody feel welcomed or gentle about coming into the class?
Oh, gosh, I think it's how you engage with them. Like the first thing I tell, if this hurts, what do we do? We don't keep going. We stop. We stop. Nobody cares. People we want to care don't even care. So stop.
Well,
and
the
it's
fact
really
that you've
true.
Right. And I mean this in a really positive way. The fact that you've been doing this for decades, you're not some little 23-year-old with a right. But that also, I think, shows people that someone in their age group can do it, then they should be able to do it as well.
Right.
And then you also have that empathy.
I do, because I'm right there with them. My knees hurt every day. A gentleman in class last Friday, he said, should I do squats? And I'm thinking, I can't do squats. They kill my knees. No, I can give you some better things to do other than squats. We're not 23.
There you go.
Your knees are, everybody needs to take care of their knees.
There you go.
Because that is the most complicated joint we have.
Now, you mentioned yoga a few minutes ago, and you were doing that with some veterans.
I was. I worked at Spire Institute in Geneva, Ohio.
What kind of
well, we did adaptive programming. We did, they would come to my yoga class and they would say, legs on or off today. It was
because these are folks who have lost limbs.
Correct. These are all veterans that were currently and presently served, not, in Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran. This was the best group of men I've ever met in my entire life. I miss them every day.
Those guys
they were
like to
life-changing. And, oh, my gosh, they just bickered and fought and tried to outdo each other on a regular basis. And they did. There wasn't anything that they did not. We at Spire.
Judy, what was the results of working with these guys?
We had one young man. He had a significant brain injury. And when he first started, he was in a wheelchair and he had difficulty moving. And at Spire, there was 1,174 steps in the building that I worked, which was the track building. And his name was Michael. And it was the best day when Michael was able to walk all of those stairs all the way down and all the way back.
Oh my gosh. And how
he was 28 years old.
And overcoming this severe brain injury.
A life-altering brain injury.
And he got the use of, at least a partial use of his legs back.
He started to move. Yes, he had a multitude of problems, but he did those stairs and people couldn't believe it, and the oorahs were just happening. And Navy and Marines, they argue. They fought on a regular basis.
There's a little rivalry there.
There's a big rivalry there, but it was the greatest group of men I've ever worked with. At the Cleveland VA.
And what kind of yoga were you doing with them?
Well, we did primarily hatha yoga, and that was a lot of breath work and a lot of breathing, because when you in yoga breath should be about 8 seconds, the duration, the inhale, and 9 seconds for the exhale. And short and shallow gives you short and shallow. And if you think about it, when you're stressed or scared or alarmed or something's wrong, you breathe so short. You don't oxygenate like you should. And in yoga, we always, your prana, which is your breath, you want to make sure that you fuel and feed every single cell in your entire being.
More oxygen-rich blood into the brain is a good first step in reducing stress.
Yes. And breath initiates movement. You have to breathe in order to move,
There you go.
I mean, you have to breathe, and it's imperative. And a lot of it started with breath work, and then it started with talking, and then it started with stretching, because people do not like to stretch. First up, they don't like to go on the floor for fear of not being able to get up. But my theory is if you fall on the floor, you have to get up. You can't lay there.
Right.
Somehow we have to make you confident or comfortable enough that you are able to figure out a way so you don't lay there if you fall.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
that is what's significant.
Now, you're doing a specific kind of yoga here at Encore as well.
I am.
Judy, tell me about that.
I am doing, it's called chakra yoga. And we have started, there are 7 chakras within the body, and they say they're energy wheels. But I also think that your chakras are also like a way that you kind of think. Maybe not think is the incorrect word, but our first one, our top is our crown chakra.
May I?
Yes.
May I beg you to start at the bottom, at the root.
At the root chakra? Okay.
And because, I was reflecting on this after our conversation the other day, and I realized that, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is hiding inside here. He came up with those back in the 60s. But if we start at the root, if we start at the base needs,
okay,
walk me up from there.
It is your basic need. It is your root chakra. That's your primal survival. That's
food, water, shelter.
Just populating, not alone. It is your root chakra. It's the basis. It's the beginning. It's your connection with the earth as well. And then we have our solar plexus, kind of right below our umbilical.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
our root.
Next step up from there.
Correct, and we're going up to our solar plexus, and that is kind of with the root, our survival, how we survive. But it also, too, when we think about our solar plexus, our gut, I think a lot of it is how you think.
Down by the navel.
Correct. Did you ever get that feeling of oh, something's wrong? I think those feelings, too, resonate.
Your intuition, your gut feeling.
Your third eye. You have your root, your heart chakra. Are we always thinking with our heart? Our throat chakra.
Well, isn't part of this practice then to put all of these things in line or in balance with each other?
Well, we're taking them each and every one apart. We are now up to our bindi, the bindi that is worn here. This is our third eye. We're up to our third eye chakra, and that's your intuition.
And is that
do you
connected
listen
all to the
it?
pineal gland?
Pardon me?
Is that connected at all to the pineal gland?
Your throat chakra. Well, yes. This class. I was unfortunately away this weekend, so I didn't do my lesson plan. But I believe it is your pineal gland. So, but your throat chakra. That when you get a sensation in your throat, that cough, that clear, have you spoken your truth? Did you hold back? Did you say something you really needed to say to either establish a boundary or to invite? I think our chakras are so much more. I think they also, too, speak of who we are and how we're feeling, and what we think. And that is the basis of yoga. Really, in a nutshell, it's who you are, how you feel, and what do you think. It's all of those three things that you have to blend into your being, and you can't leave one out.
So negative thoughts in and of themselves wouldn't necessarily be bad. It's kind of bringing to your attention something needs to be addressed.
Correct. I mean, yeah.
But if you don't know how to, right, if you're having negative thoughts about something, or you feel like you're not communicating clearly, or
a lot of times it's throat chakra issues.
Right, or you don't feel safe around people or whatever.
Correct. And
so
it's heart chakra
what
issues.
do we do? I can't just stop hanging out with these. Well, I suppose you could, but
well,
you're running away from the problem rather than trying to
I think you have to know if you have a problem and what it is first. I think you have to identify it. I think you have to identify it as a problem, or is it just a passing feeling?
Well, like you were saying before, like pain in the knees is, we typically go, pain is bad. And I get it. I understand why that is. But pain in the knees is telling you, don't do this anymore. This is, stop, you're overdoing or whatever.
Right.
And so a pain, a psychological pain or a spiritual pain is also telling you, isn't it, that something is out of whack?
Something's out of whack. And I think you're right. And I think, but then I think you have to look deeper and think of why.
That's it. And it's it's so dangerous to ignore these feelings. I feel it's dangerous to ignore these feelings or these intuitions or sensations.
You're right.
At the psychological or spiritual level, because you're
you're exposing yourself, and it's not going to get better if you don't address it. Or if you don't pay attention to how you feel. If you keep pushing something under the rug, and pushing it under the rug, pretty soon the rug's going to be lifted. You're going to trip over the rug because there's all kinds of crap underneath there.
You got a lumpy rug.
Right. I mean, I think if we keep, if we don't address some of the challenges, and, not everybody is going to mesh with everybody. So there are going to be some issues. The best thing to do is know what they are, and then maybe just don't do that. Stop. Why don't we just stop? Why do we keep beating a dead horse?
If you need to do that, go do that somewhere else, or let's shake hands and part company.
Right, part company.
Or whatever.
Right. If somebody's not helpful or healthy to you, or if they hurt, I don't know. Also, too, in yoga, the philosophy is you come from a kind, loving place. You come from a place of acceptance, but that's yoga thinking. I'm not sure everybody comes from the same place.
Well, then a lot of times people's, I want to use some $5 college words too.
Okay,
Sometimes people's maladaptive responses are because they are somehow wounded, and they have ignored that spiritual pain or that psychological pain, and they haven't addressed it. And so it's their physical bearing, their words, their interaction with their fellow human beings becomes maladaptive.
And they project it upon you. And then it becomes your fault, and it's nothing to do with
somebody else's fault.
Somebody else's fault. It doesn't have anything to do with them.
So now, if in our last few minutes, can you start to connect some dots? Because some people might be going, okay, I sort of get this on a level what they're talking about, but I'm not sure how doing yoga is going to help me psychologically or spiritually or whatever. Can you just address that for a little bit?
I think the best thing to start with yoga is to start from the physical aspect, because it will take on its own life. Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah.
And you will be able to do nothing or be anywhere else but where you are at within that practice. I think the biggest thing is we take the time to move through the 14 original asanas that were started with Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga is the grandfather. Asanas are movements.
Like a pose.
Well, we're not even talking poses. We're talking small poses, lifting the arm. And the purpose of that is to stretch as we reflect back to our other classes. we have to stretch the muscles where they attach for the main reason that we need to keep range of motion. When we maintain range of motion, we maintain the ability to have full movement, full range of motion, movement, so we can't pick up our leg that high. They all of these three classes, they work together. Our Pilates that addresses our core, that picks up our leg. Then our weight class, which is, it's plugged as building bone density because you're lifting weights. Anytime you lift your body weight or weight, you build bone density.
And you have this range of motion, which
Correct.
theoretically then means the tissue of your body inside and out is supple.
The muscles.
And circulation is moving?
Well, our goal is to stretch the muscles that attach to the joints to be able to give you that range of motion and that freedom of movement. So it kind of, we work on the core, then we do our balance, our free weights, our lifting our legs, and we do finish with our yoga, but we re-stretch that. In our Pilates class, Pilates was based on yoga. So we stretch those muscles as well before we begin our class. Just so, again, we don't want to keep strengthening tight muscles because tight muscles are inhibiting muscles. Long, slow, smooth movements create length. They create that ability for that muscle to support that joint. Awesome. If you keep just shortening like a bicep curl, here, well, pretty soon you're going to be all bicep and you won't be able to extend your arm straight.
Not very flexible.
Not very flexible. And then what's going to happen if you pick up too big of a weight or something happens, you're going to tear that bicep and it's going to go all the way up.
And does physical flexibility then eventually lead you to mental flexibility?
Let's hope so. Yes, I think it does. I think it does.
Thanks for coming in today and explaining all of this for us. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Oh, I as well. So awesome. Thank you very much. And please come to the classes. Encore it's wonderful. Yeah. I was so excited to start.
If you're thinking about it, just go ahead and try it and see what happens.
I mean, my God, just do what's going to happen. You don't like it, you go home.
Awesome.
So
thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.